about how you met Grandpa and what year you met him and what dating was like and the kinds of things that you guys like to do.
Well, I met Grandpa at a dance. I was on a date with one of his friends. And he and his buddy were at a dance at the same building, but a different floor. So Grandpa come with his buddy to see what's going on at the dance that was on the floor below. And that's how I met him. I was with his friend. In fact, his name was Al Rugman. He lived on the street where I live. So that's where we met. Well, I guess I didn't make a big impression, but he did on me, because the next time I saw him at another dance, a polka dance, and I was there with one of my girlfriends and danced by the polka band in front of the stage, and I saw him there with his buddy, Leo Greiser. I said, "Oh, hi." He said, "Hi." And he said to his buddy, "Who is she?" That's why I say, I don't know. Of course, he turned out he could meet somebody many, many times and not remember him. But I guess he had an eye for me, too. So he started going to different dances with his buddy. And if I wasn't there, he'd go to the next hall. We had dances going on all the time.
And they were always at the hall?
Oh, yes. Polka dances, different halls. And if I wasn't at one, they'd come to a different hall. And that's how it all started.
How old were you?
I was just 19. I met him the early part of 1940.
Oh, wow.
That's a long time ago.
How long did you date until you got married?
Well, we dated. We went together for about a year. And then we got engaged. We got engaged around December. And engaged for 9 months and got married in 1941, October 25th.
Where did you take your honeymoon?
We went to Washington, D.C. on a honeymoon.
Was that your first time in Washington,
Oh,
D.C.?
definitely.
Yeah?
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
What color were your bridesmaid dresses? Do you remember?
They were kind of... like a burgundy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cold. October, it was one of these days where it was light snow. We had little white bunny capes on. It was really cold. Had my sister.
What was the date again?
October 25th, right, 1941. Yeah. Lived with my parents for 4 years. Couldn't find rent. Uncle Ron was born in 42, and then...
You were living with your parents when?
For 4 years we lived there. And then your dad was born, and we finally got rent and moved away. And we left on a Sunday, left a nice card, thank you card for my parents. And I was a little upset to think that my dad wasn't there to say goodbye. He went to play cards next door. And then I approached him after he read the card and thanked us. And I said, asked him why he wasn't there. Can you imagine living with them for 4 years? He hated to see us go, so he didn't want to be there when we left.
How was it all living under one roof?
Oh, it was no problem.
No problem?
No problem at all. My parents loved Grandpa. He was easy to love. Easy to get along with, I think, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was the house like?
Oh, it was a regular bungalow. We had a bedroom upstairs in the attic. No air conditioning. My dad did make a bathroom within the attic. We had that. And that's where we stayed.
How many bathrooms?
It was just the one upstairs, just the toilet, or John, they call him, and one downstairs, and 2 bedrooms downstairs, and the living room, dining room, kitchen, and the bathroom. Of course, we didn't have closet space like we do now.
How was your first apartment?
It was a house. We rented a house. It was a double house, and we were on the first floor. And we were there for about 5 years. And then we moved across the street, was on East 169th Street, and that's where Grandpa's mother lived. So his sister moved out of the suite upstairs in his mother's house, so we moved upstairs by his mother. We were there for not a real long time, then we found the house that we lived in on Harland Avenue. And stayed there until I lost Grandpa. And then he died in 1999, April the 10th. And the next year I decided to move on. And sold the house, was gone in 2 weeks. I live in an apartment now, Tamarack apartment. And I'm totally happy there. It was the best thing I could have done.
So it sounds like you guys did a lot of dancing.
We did a lot of dancing. Oh, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. By Monday, I worked at General Electric. At that time, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I had a glass of water there with a handkerchief wetting my eyes. Yeah, a lot of dancing.
What other types of things did you guys do for fun?
Well, we would go to movies. We had picnics with friends, which was nice. We went to concerts at different singing clubs in the area.
How much did it cost to go to the movies in 1941?
Oh gosh, I don't think it was $1. When I was young, it was 10 cents, 25 cents. So 2 movies, a cereal, a comics, and
A lot different than $15 today.
oh yes, and then even then sometimes it was hard because, well, money was tight, there wasn't work, we had the war, depression, but everybody lived the same. We didn't know the difference. We were all happy.
So you and Grandpa have always been role models for me. You seem to be one of the happiest couples I ever knew. What do you say is the secret to your happy marriage?
Well, number 1, trust, patience. In fact, Uncle Ron asked Grandpa once, what's the secret of our marriage? And he said, well, a lot of times Mom would maybe irritate me and I didn't agree with something, but I didn't say anything. He figured it would pass over. He said she probably felt the same way about me and let it go by. Not that we didn't disagree on things, but it just depends on how you handle these things. And I've always said, and I never could understand why people, and I had this with my own brother, I call it nitpicking. They start with something small, and before you know it, it's gotten to be a mountainous thing. And then they have a big fight.
GiGi, tell me about school. How did you dress? Did you ever wear pants to school? Do you remember a favorite teacher?
Oh, we dressed very...
It's all the same question.
We had no fancy clothes in school. When I went to grade school, nobody wore slacks. Ladies didn't wear slacks in those days. Very simple clothes. We couldn't afford anything fashionable, that's for sure. But I liked school regardless. Favorite teachers? Actually, it's funny because I had one in grade school, Miss Parmalee. She was a music teacher. And Collinwood High School, I did take voice. And Mr. Lake, he was a super music teacher. And we had to do solo. And he said to me, I cannot understand how you sing so well and sing so wrong. But he never told me what I was doing wrong. Until later on, I guess I found out I didn't place my tongue right. But I used it for other purposes.
When did you realize what you wanted to be?
Oh, at a young age, I was fascinated doing hair. My mother won a prize getting a permanent wave. You probably don't know what that is. They put a solution on your hair, then they put these big clamps on, and they have this monstrous machine, put the heat on, and then that curls it. I sat there watching, and I was just fascinated. When I was 10 years old, I was finger waving my hair with sugar water to make it stiff. And by the time I went to high school, we had a bicycle, and I had a cigar box, and I would ride around to the neighbor ladies, do their hair, go back the next day and comb it, and I made 50 cents. I earned all my graduation money from high school.
When did you get your driver's license?
I was 19, and at that time you didn't have to have a driver's test. I just went and said that I lost it and I got a driver's license. And Grandpa taught me on the stick shift. He's one of the few men that had patience to teach driving. And driving ever since, still driving a Ford Focus, which is, I'm leasing. It'll be up July 22nd, 2015. So I have to decide what I'm going to do.
What was your house like?
Our house was a little bungalow, small, but sufficient. Parents had it tough. Had this house built, then the war started, depression, and I was my parents almost lost their house. It was this banker that was getting all these houses, but they had such a big mortgage that they didn't lose their house. Then they went federal housing. And can you imagine, I was very young, go on a streetcar and pay every month on this mortgage downtown. So, but we made it.
What was it like being a teenager back then?
Being a teenager, well, I'll tell you, I was very active with my singing. I was 10 years old and joined the singing club till I was 16. Then I went to adult singing, and I stayed there until the year 2004. And that was during my teenage years that I stayed there. And then, of course, I was married, had dear Grandpa and Uncle Ron, but that was a big part of my life. I enjoyed singing, teamed up with one of my classmates. She and I did a lot of singing at banquets, had a concert in Calumet, Michigan. So I have one regret. I wouldn't want that for a career, but I wished I had studied a little more, that I could read music, but it was all in my head. I had a good ear for music, but I felt that I missed out a little bit, not knowing the theory of music. But all in all, it was a good run.
What is the most amazing thing you have seen in your lifetime? And why did that stand out?
What was that?
What was the most amazing thing you have seen in your lifetime, and why did that stand out?
Right, I'd say maybe actually about 30 years ago, when things got better, and within the 20-year span, there was so much improvement in everyday life, computers, everything was so easy. Life got so easy that it wasn't even a chore anymore.
How was your life affected by the Prohibition and the Great Depression?
Well, I wouldn't say Prohibition, I was too young, but the people that went through it, wow, they had barrels all over the place, breaking up those barrels, but Depression was tough. I was old enough to really live through it and remember it. But all our friends went through the same thing. My dad worked maybe 3 days a week, and not even in the factory that he worked at. He used to cut grass for the owner of the factory. But my mother, well, she could stretch. She sometimes had her last dime for a pound of soup meat. But when things got better, well, we really appreciate it little at a time. Sometimes I think it's good to not have everything. And, well, like during the war, it was tough too because they rationed so much. Gasoline, of course, as far as cigarettes, that didn't bother us. We gave our coupons to somebody else and they would give their gasoline coupons. So you kind of pay Peter to pay Paul. So that, and you got it. So anyway, I mean, it was even, the word would get, well, we lived at that time on 169th Street. We moved from my parents' home. And the word would get out. We'd tell our neighbors, oh, they got ground meat. We better go to the butcher, get ground meat. Oh, they got bananas today. I mean, this is how it was. It got to be a game, and it was a fun game.
Grandma, when you say coupons, what did you mean by coupons?
Well, like you have, they were ration coupons. They were like stamps. And then you would turn those in, so like when you wanted to get gasoline, you turn those coupons in, or stamps. You know, you could call them either way, really. Yeah.
So who all got those?
Who got them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you get like people that worked in factories that were driving. They had to get them so they could drive. And as far as cigarettes, they could get them, you know, from the government. Yeah.
So grocery stores weren't stocked the way
No.
they are today.
And you go to a grocery store, like a mom and pop store, and you wanted something, they would get it with a big hook up the top shelf, you know, or you wait and the butcher would cut the meat for you. I mean, it was totally different than the shopping is today.
Do you think the world has gotten better or worse?
Well, it's gotten a lot better, a lot of convenience and all this electronics and all. But I think it's good. It's good for young men like you. It's convenient, but there are a lot of teenagers out there that are abusing it, getting in trouble. They're looking at what they should not be looking at. They should be thinking more of school, but that's what's out there. And a lot of parents don't follow up and see what their kids are doing. But in the long run, I can see that it's very helpful to stay in touch with each other.
Where were you when they announced the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
Well, we had just gotten married in October 25th. This was December 7th. And we were living with my parents. And we were in my parents' living room when we heard of the bombing.
How did World War II affect your everyday life?
Well, like I said, things were rationed, things were tough.
What invention has had the most impact on your life? And what advice would you give to a high school graduate?
Well, inventions, there are many there for convenience. You get the washer, dryer. Heck, I used to wash clothes and hang them out on the line and come home from the store, and this one day there was a storm. All my laundry was down the street. And so were my groceries. Paper bag was all wet. Groceries are on the street. So washers, dryers.
And didn't you not have a refrigerator at one time? Did they
Well,
actually have an ice box where they put
When
ice in?
we first moved from my parents, it was right after the war. And that was in 1945. And they were slow in producing refrigerators and stoves because they were doing all that work. In fact, Grandpa didn't have to go into service because he was a wire weaver, wove very fine wire that was used for sifting gunpowder. And the company kept him out every 6 months. But we had an ice box, and we used to put a card in the window. If you want 25 pounds of ice or 50 pounds, they would come in and bring the ice, and the ice box was up on top. Well, sometimes we would forget to empty out the pan on the bottom because the ice would melt. And we'd come home, this one time we'd come home from somewhere and the water was already going around and around in the bedroom.
What is your favorite childhood memory?
Oh, I would say playing with our friends, growing up with them, growing up with my sister. Of course, we were totally different personalities. She was more the type that would like to swim with water over her head. I would swim up to my neck. She was more athletic, acrobats, horseback riding, roller skating, where I like to be planted on the floor and I like to dance and sing. And of course my brother was born when I was 13 years old, and of course he was my delight. I think I helped raise him. Of course I've lost him a few years ago.
What are some of the most important lessons you feel you have learned over the course of your life?
What was that?
What are some of the most important lessons you have learned over the course of your life?
Well, I always say, treat people the way you want to be treated. Try to be nice to people so that you don't hurt them. If you think you'd be hurt by saying what you would say to somebody else, then don't say it.
What is the greatest lesson you have learned in life?
My greatest lesson? Well, I would say part of that is treat people the way you want to be treated. And don't be a hypocrite, okay? If you have something nice to say, say it. But don't say it because you don't mean it. And I enjoy being with people.
If there's one thing you would do differently, what would it be?
I don't think I'd do anything differently. I had a good life. I had a wonderful marriage. Grandpa and I did a lot together. I had 2 good sons and the offspring. So I would say that I had a good life and still do. And I wouldn't I wouldn't change anything.
For you, Grandma.
You and Grandpa had a long and wonderful marriage. What advice would you give a young person today who's planning to marry?
Well, you have to be patient with one another, trust one another, do things together. Don't go your way and he goes that way. You got to do things together.
How important to you is your faith?
What?
How important to you is your faith? Some of these are worded really weird. Some of them I just skipped.
Well, you asked me about advice I give to graduates for today. It's another phase of your life, and some graduates think that, wow, they can conquer the world. There's a big change in your life. You have a lot to learn, trial and error, and you have to be a good citizen and have a goal, what you want to do in life.
How common was everyday swearing when you were growing up?
Well, there wasn't much swearing. If somebody said, damn it, then you know they were mad. Once in a while, Grandpa would say, damn it, and he was angry about something, especially if he was working on something that didn't work out, although he was very handy. But as far as cussing, it depends on what type of people you're with. If you're with a rowdy bunch and drinkers, then you're going to hear it. And just don't put up with it.
This year marks the 65th anniversary of the bikini. Did you have one when it first came to America's fashion?
The bikini.
Oh,
No bikini for me.
What was your favorite era or style of fashion?
Well,
I'm trying to answer all these.
I always just went with the flow. I loved my clothes, and I wasn't hard to please. And I always felt that I was fashionable. I think I am to this date. I have a lot of lady friends saying that, and I always say, well, ladies, it's out there for you too. Go get it.
What leader has most impressed you?
What has most...
What leader has most impressed you?
Oh, I really can't say anything special.
What leader, Grandma? Like, what leader? Like president or...
Leader. I was trying to think of that. I did some notes. And I think my era was Franklin D. Roosevelt. Because it was at a time when things were tough. And we always felt that he was for the working people, which he was. That's okay. And of course he's the one that started Social Security, which a lot of people depend on.
You've had an opportunity to experience almost 10 decades. Describe what it was like as a teenager with these different situations. What were your type of social plans when you were growing up?
Social plans? Well, most of it was our singing, our concerts. Of course, after, when Grandpa retired, we did a lot of traveling. Went to Europe 4 times. Got to Hawaii. Did a lot of golfing, golf trips.
Okay, Frankie. Do you have a question for GiGi?
My pop.
Yeah,
Ask GiGi what kind of candy she likes.
White candy.
What kind of candy I like? I like chocolate candy. Oh, yeah.
I was lollipop.
I like lollipops too. Yeah, the kind when you get down to the gum. That's good. Mm-hmm.
Or I could get Avalanche picnic. I could get doggies. Sing. Or you could get candy.
Oh, and what kind of candy do you like?
I like no, not going.
No? Do you like ice cream?
No, just called.
You don't.
I like butter and pots.
You do? Wow.
Butter and what?
A popsicle.
A popsicle.
Popsicle. Wow. Yeah.
I didn't do this.
And do you like your sister Alida?
I did, and she doesn't eat. She eats noodles, and she eats baby carrot. I think let me get the one.
What about Big Brother Sam?
Because he eats. He makes mess in the car.
He makes a mess in the car.
He does.
With root beer?
With the root beer.
Oh, goodness. He's got to be more careful than that. He's a big boy now. Yes, he is.
Favorite candy is gum.
Take your fingers off the lens.
This is GiGi's interview. It is June 22nd. It is a Monday and it is 2015. So, just first question. When you were a teenager, how was transportation and did you have a car? Or did your family have a car?
My dad had a car, yes, one of the few cars around. It was a 1929, but don't ask me what car it was. All I know is we were able to get around. We used to go once a year, visit my cousins, and go on to New York. That was a trip. And we would have a picnic basket. Really, all in all, wasn't that far, near Buffalo. But yeah, we had a car.
Okay. Second question. Who were your role models?
My role models? I would say my parents.
And what famous person did you have a crush on?
Oh, famous person, I think like every other woman, was Clark Gable, movie star.
Mm.
And he was in a movie, Gone with the Wind. And it was quite a movie to see. Everybody wanted to. We went downtown to see the movie. Yeah, it was quite a crush everybody had on him. Not that it would have helped, but I think everybody did. So, okay?
Okay. And tell me about the evolution of women in the workforce over years.
Well, there was a big change right after, well, during the Second World War. All the men went into service, and women had to work in the factories. And, well, that started all of the women working. The workforce used to be they stayed home, but, of course, by the time the men come home, they had to work to help pay for their expenses, food and roof over their heads. So, and of course they're still out there, and women have come a long way. Very intelligent.
So you say their rights progressed, basically?
What was that?
Their working rights progressed?
Oh yes, very much so, very much.
Being a hairdresser, you've seen many hairstyles come and go. What has been your favorite, and what has been your least favorite?
Well, I would say my favorite was just a simple little bob cut, nothing drastic. And the one I did not like was the spiked hairdos, especially on older women. I thought those looked ridiculous, but I think they're gone. They're gone with the wind, like the movie.
That'd be. And were you inspired by Elvis, the Beatles, and Buddy Holly?
Not at all.
Then what music did you listen to?
Oh, I liked big band music. I liked from Broadway shows music. Yeah. And operas. Grandpa and I went to see the opera when it was in town. We enjoyed that.
And what concerts do you remember?
Oh, we had...
specific things from the concert. Do you remember any of those?
Well, it was Wayne Newton. He performed. We went to see him. A lot of talent. He went from one instrument to another. And that was a place called the Music Carnival. Then we saw other shows. You know, stars would come in. And, of course, we didn't get to go too often because, you know, you didn't have the money at that time. But Grandpa and I both enjoyed music. We did.
Did you have, like, similar music taste?
Did we have what?
Similar music taste.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, next question. What would you say are the major values or principles that you live by?
Well, I've always said treat others like you want to be treated, and don't be a hypocrite. Give an answer where you don't really mean it, and show your affection towards people. I always like to be with people.
So be truthful?
Truthful, right?
Okay. You have experienced several wars in your lifetime. What wars?
Well, World War II, Vietnam, Korean War. Of course, now there's, in the Mideast, terrible wars right now. ISIS, I mean, that's the present time. But I guess we'll always have wars. It goes so many thousands of years. It's never ending.
And did any of your family serve in the military?
My brother Ray did, but he was in occupied Germany. That was after the war that he went in the service. Yeah.
So he didn't like.
He was not active duty, but after the war was over, he had to go.
Yeah.
In they called it occupied service.
Okay. What is your favorite song, and your favorite movie and your favorite book?
Well, Grandpa and I had a favorite song, "Does Your Heart Beat for Me?" And we could be at a dance somewhere and maybe not dancing at that time. Maybe he was out chatting with the guys, and soon as they start to play that, "Does Your Heart Beat for Me?" at a polka dance, I knew he'd come because we always danced it. That was our song, yeah.
What's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Well, I'd say I had a couple of them. Of course, I did like Gone with the Wind, and I like Love Stories on Golden Pond, Lilies of the Field. I don't like, a lot of action. I don't like killings and that, or movies that are so way out that can't be real.
Futuristic and like murder.
Right, yeah.
What happened in those movies that you liked?
What kind of movies?
Like what were they like?
Well, like I say, they were like love stories, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Your favorite book? What was your favorite book?
I didn't have a favorite, really. Yeah.
Too many?
I had to read it because it had to be for school, Even to this day, I'm not much of a reader. I'd like to read more, but my eyes get tired, The age is there, yeah.
What is the greatest lesson you have learned in life?
Well, like I said before, you got to be truthful, you got to be trusting, and like I've said, you got to treat people the way you want to be treated. Try to be patient, try not to be angry, and it's just as easy to give a word of praise as it is to criticize, because praise will go a long way. And be sincere.
How important to you is your faith?
I believe in God, but I wish I knew a little bit more. Never had the opportunity to go, say, Bible studies and that. And you get to an age now where you trust in God and hope it's your answers. You get your answers from God and things turn out good. But whatever it is, it is.
Well, I think that was
Yeah.
the last question.
Well, there's some good questions I would say that Mary had, and I thank you, Sam, for this second interview. And Ryan did yesterday, Father's Day. And I would say that I'm a very fortunate lady to have such a wonderful family. I'm treated so well, but I feel that I'm being treated so well because I like to treat my family as well as I possibly can. And I hope my whole family, the boys, the girl, little Alita, have as good a life as I have had. I love you all.
Thank you.
Okay?
And Lita, this is for you and any other future kids.
Thank you, Sam.
Very nice. Thank you.
Yes, but deep,